is rich and who is poor from a spiritual point of view? It is recorded that Christ said, "It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the gates of heaven." So when he said that, all the poor were very happy because they thought, well, wow, it is not difficult for the poor to enter the gates of heaven. It is only difficult for the rich to enter the gates of heaven. So then Christ was asked to talk about the poor. And he said, the poor are miserable here and they are miserable in the kingdom of God. But the self-satisfied ones are wretched in the kingdom of God. So we'll talk about the self-satisfied ones at another time, but let us focus on who's rich and who's poor from a spiritual point of view. Now, the Indian history, we are taught about King Janak. King Janak was the father of Sita, father-in-law of Ram, the prophet. King Janak had many palaces, over 12. And he was a true spiritual seeker. And because he was a seeker, he would also support others who were spiritual seekers, so that at any given time in his palaces, there were a lot of sadhus, 200, 300, maybe more. Many of them were charlatans who were just living off King Janak, and he was aware of it. But nevertheless, he tolerated it. And another practice that King Janak had was that whenever a great spiritual teacher would come to his kingdom, then he would adjourn his courts and go and listen to the speaker. Not as a king, but as one in the audience. So instead of sitting on a stage and then allowing the speaker to address the crowd, he would be sitting as one among the listeners on the floor. So it was one of those times when a spiritual teacher had come, and the spiritual teacher was, of course, sitting on a stage, and the king was in the audience sitting on the ground, surrounded by all these sadhus. And while the speaker was still giving his lecture, a messenger came and whispered something into the king's ear. And the sadhus around him heard what the messenger had to say. And pretty soon the message was spread throughout all of the group of sadhus that were sitting there, and they all got up and ran. Only the king remained, and so since the king was still sitting, the speaker continued to speak. And when he finished speaking, he was a little curious. He said, "What happened?" He said, "Why did all of these guys run?" He said, "Well," he said, "the messenger told me that my most beautiful palace is on fire. And these sadhus have their spare langotis hanging out to dry. So they ran to retrieve their langotis." Now from this you can see who's rich and who's poor. From a spiritual point of view, although King Janak was extremely wealthy, he didn't give value to money. He gave value to truth. Whereas the sadhus, who are supposedly broke, gave more importance to the langotis than they did to what the speaker was saying. So just because you don't have any money doesn't mean that from a spiritual point of view you're poor. If you're attached to money, you're rich. But if you have wealth and you recognize that this wealth doesn't belong to you, that it belongs to the divine and you are merely a trustee, then you are poor from a spiritual point of view.